Good day, ladies and gentlemen. You have tuned in to WHRFM.com's Point Counterpoint with Charlie and Pastor Gary. I'm Charlie. That is Pastor Gary. Pastor Gary runs Dare to Be Different Food Pantry, and if you were to go to WHRFM.com and hit the donate button, you'll be able to give some money to the Dare to Be Different Food Pantry so we can feed people that are in need of assistance. Gary takes the food to some of the folks that just can't get out of their house. And with this pandemic thing, there's a lot of folks that are afraid to leave the house.
Still, yeah.
And Gary understands that, and he does his job as a minister and does that. This is a political show, but always from a faith-based perspective. If you have any comments or concerns, give us a call at 484-480-6371. Today is going to be the climate lie.
Now, a couple episodes ago, we were talking about George Soros. Comes that he donates more than $32 billion to the Open Society Foundation. So if you want to go back a couple episodes, we talked about the Open Society.
Well, I'm sure we're going to be doing another episode on that because with all the money he uses to corrupt our country, it deserves more than one episode.
And he is a dual citizenship. He is a citizen of the United States.
Does he have dual citizenship?
Yep, he has dual citizenship.
You know, that's interesting, ladies and gentlemen. When I was a kid, you weren't allowed to have dual citizenship.
Huh.
When I was a kid, if you wanted to be a United States citizen, you had to give up your citizenship in another country.
When did that change?
That changed when Grace Kelly married the Prince of Monaco.
Right.
Grace Kelly was a movie star.
Right.
She was the daughter of a construction mogul in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
He owned a company called Kelly for Brickwork.
Okay.
And, of course, Kelly was in politics also. Mm-hmm. So Grace Kelly was a famous, beautiful, blonde movie star, the daughter of the guy who owned Kelly for Brickwork.
Right.
And she met the Prince of Monaco. That's a little country that has gambling casinos. And they got married, and she became a citizen of Monaco, and she was allowed to keep her U.S. citizenship.
Wow.
Now, that, to my knowledge, is the first time anybody was allowed to have dual citizenship here in this country. And, of course, I guess that just blew it out of the water. And now people like George Soros, they also have dual citizenship. And a lot of people, I think, do now. Mm-hmm. But we'll get back to that later. We're talking about the climate lie. Climate change is a political weapon that has been discovered by the left for them to gain more power, control, and money.
More money.
Right? Power, control, and money. So where do they get the concept of how to do this? They get the concept of how to do this. Do what? Using climate change as a weapon. Mm-hmm. As a weapon. There was a gentleman by the name of Saul Alinsky. Saul Alinsky wrote a book called Rules for Radicals. He was a college professor. Now, Rules for Radicals has various themes. Among them is his use of symbol construction to strengthen the unity within an organization. He would draw on loyalty to a particular church or religious affiliation to create a structured organization with which to operate. Now the constructed organizations are the George Soros organizations, the Clinton Initiative, the Rockefeller Foundation, the Ford Foundation. These are all structured organizations. The reason being that symbols by which communities can identify themselves created structured organizations that were easier to mobilize in implementing direct action. Once the community was united behind a common symbol, Alinsky would find a common enemy for the community to be united against. Making sense?
Mm-hmm.
The use of common enemy against a community was another theme of Rules for Radicals as a uniting element in communities. The community he's talking about is the radical community, the Black Lives Matter, the Antifa group, and the Democratic Party.
Mm-hmm.
They're using these rules.
Mm-hmm.
They found out they worked in Venezuela,
Mm-hmm.
and they're using them here.
And by the way, Venezuela used the same voting machines.
That's right. Alinsky would find an external antagonist to turn into a common enemy. Climate change. Global warming.
Mm-hmm.
See, they started out with global warming, but global warming was too controversial a subject, so they changed it to climate change, because no fool would say that the climate doesn't change.
Right.
It's just a question of, is it global warming?
Mm-hmm.
So they changed it, right? So Alinsky would find an external antagonist to turn into a common enemy for the community within which he was operating. Often, this would be a local politician or agency that had some involvement with activity concerning the community. Climate change. What's the agency? The agency happens to be fossil fuel, oil wells, oil drilling, extracting of gas, coal mines. That's the common enemy with climate change. Once the enemy was established, the community would come together in opposition of it. This management of conflict heightened awareness within the community as to the similarities its members shared, as well as what differentiates them from those outside their organization.
Mm-hmm.
The use of conflict also allows for the goal of the group to be clearly defined. With an established external antagonist, the community's goal would be to defeat the enemy. Of course, the enemy is now anyone who says that climate change is not occurring. See, because climate change does occur. Everybody agrees there. Mm-hmm. But the catchwords of global warming didn't work, so they changed that. Mm-hmm. All right? So there's the outline here that Saul Alinsky developed to use for the war against climate change. All right?
And that book came out in 1971.
Yes. Now, what your politicians and your money people have figured out is they can use this lie to make money. Mm-hmm. They can use this lie to have the government inflict damage upon businesses they wish to control. Mm-hmm. So one of the first things they did with climate change, global warming, was start to give money to companies that were making solar panels and windmills and climate-friendly devices.
Right.
The friends of the politicians invested in those companies. They got grants from the government. And they were doing pretty good there for a while until the Obama-Biden administration allowed the Chinese into the business. And then the Chinese flooded the market with solar panels and stuff made in China, much cheaper than the Americans could make it. And then, of course, it bankrupted the companies. Now, remember, folks, it might have bankrupted the companies, but it didn't bankrupt the investors. It didn't bankrupt the power-hungry people who are the friends of the politicians. Right? The Obama administration put restrictions on the coal industry while Obama's friends and backers were investing in coal mine stocks around the world. Well, if the coal industry in the United States goes into the dumper, the coal industry around the world goes up. Mm-hmm. So if I bought stock in the Bibbidi Boop Company from Northern Ireland, Now they're going great guns selling coal because the United States coal industry has been regulated almost out of existence. On top of that, those same people that invested in those foreign countries that were assisted in getting government grants, destroying the American industries, I was also buying the Americans' industry stock as it went down. Well, why would I do that if I believed in climate change? Because I don't. None of them do. It's a lie. It is the big climate lie. They don't believe in it. They are manipulating the regulation ability of the government to purchase and sell stock at a profit. That's what they're doing.
So they did that with the coal industry. So the next step, how about the oil industry?
They did that with the coal industry. They did that with the oil industry. Now,
wow.
I have here Secret Empires by Peter Schweitzer.
It's a good author. He's got a number of best sellers.
All right, Secret Empire. What's this?
Is that John Kerry? Is he in there?
That's a picture of John Kerry, Obama, Biden, and Susan Rice meeting with the Chinese government right in 2015, right before Biden's son Hunter and John Kerry's stepson, Christopher Heinz, had quickly struck a multi-billion-dollar deal right after that meeting.
Wow.
Here's another picture. Biden, Hunter's at sea. The vice president arrives in Beijing with his granddaughter, Finnegan, and son Hunter aboard Air Force Two. And by the way, during the Trump administration, the Secretary of Transportation wanted to go to China and take her family with her. And the administration and the Secretary of State raised a brouhaha and said, no, this is not the way we do things. You're not going on official government business, flying in an official government Air Force jet, taking your family with you. Well, then why was it not okay for someone in the Trump administration to take their family to China, but the media thinks it's okay for Biden to take his family on Air Force Two to China? And 10 days after Biden left China, Hunter's firm would seal a highly unusual $1.5 billion deal with funding from the Chinese government. Not Chinese business, the Chinese government. It just boggles the mind. But let's talk about smashing a business so that the politicians' friends can grab it. That's what we're going to talk about. By the third quarter of 2010, this is all from Secret Empires. By the third quarter, and by the way, ladies and gentlemen, nobody sued this author. Nobody has claimed that anything he wrote in this book was false. Nobody has claimed that anything in this book is false. What they've done, the mainstream media and the Democratic Party, is act like it doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist. It doesn't mean it's not fact. It just doesn't exist in their world. By the third quarter of 2010, in the wake of Obama's regulatory push, Ariel Investments had bought stakes in Gulf Island Fabrication, which builds offshore oil platforms. The stock had been trading at more than $23 a share when Obama announced his ban on offshore drilling. Later that summer, Ariel bought it at $15 a share. You understand, ladies and gentlemen? The President of the United States used his power to regulate a business virtually to a standstill so his friends could buy it. Well, why would his friends buy it if it was causing a problem with the climate, with global warming? Because, ladies and gentlemen, it's a lie. They don't believe it, and they're taking advantage of it. Saul Alinsky told them how to do it. Mm-hmm. They have identified an easily destroyed business. They smash it, then they grab it. 10 years from now, they're still going to be talking about this green stuff. Mm-hmm. It's not going to have any bearing upon anything. But if you continue to allow them to continue to do this, they are going to own the energy industry. The people in power in Washington, the friends of these politicians, will own the energy industry. Mm-hmm. And you will still have to buy coal and oil and gas. Mm-hmm. And they will own it. And they buy it cheap. There's a company called Marathon Oil. They own oil drilling rigs, platforms. They had, the stock was selling at one point, I think like around $60 a share. Obama regulated drilling around the United States and offshore out of existence. And Marathon Oil's stock plummeted. Then why did George Soros buy it? If the stock was, if the company was bad, if what they were doing was bad for the climate, why are the investors, the backers of Obama and Biden, buying the stock in those companies after the government regulates them into obscurity? That's a question. Does somebody have an answer? Early in the Obama administration, one of Soros' biggest investments was the Brazilian energy giant Petrobras. It's a state-owned company. Soros has big investments in Petrobras. Obama regulated offshore drilling out of existence around the United States, and he approved a large loan guaranteed to Petrobras to explore drilling off the coast of Brazil. But I thought oil drilling was affecting the climate. Mm-hmm. Apparently, it's only affecting the climate around the United States. And the companies that are drilling around the United States that aren't owned by the supporters of the political hierarchy. Because if you could drill off of Brazil and give the money to a company that George Soros has a lot of stock in, why not? Mm-hmm. There's a guy by the name of Rogers. He's a big in this company, Ariel. John Rogers Ariel Investments bought its first large stake in Chesapeake Energy Corporation in the second quarter of 2011. They gobbled up 1.6 million shares at more than $47 million. By the third quarter of 2013, Rogers Fund had purchased 2 million shares of U.S. Silica Holdings, which provides sand for fracking. Well, wait a second. Didn't the Obama and Biden administration shut down fracking? Mm-hmm. Well, then why is this guy Rogers, who's a friend of Obama's, buying stock in a company that supplies sand for fracking? Can you answer that question?
No, can't.
Well, I think you can answer that question, can't you? The answer to that question is, unless these multi-billionaires are fools. Does anybody think George Soros is a fool? Does anybody think this guy Rogers Investments is a fool? If anybody thinks they're a fool, then you're a fool. Nobody thinks these people are fools. What these people are investors that have access to the power in the White House. And the power in the White House destroys or smashes an industry, and then their friends buy it for pennies on the dollar. Does that make sense? I mean, that's a fabulous way to do business, wouldn't it be, Larry? I mean, Gary, there's one fellow in here that visited the White House like 125 times, and nobody knows what he talked to the president about. But he happens to own millions of dollars worth of shares in coal mines. Well, wait a second. Didn't the administration put all types of regulations on coal mines, which destroyed the value of the coal mine stock in the United States? And these same people are buying shares, bought shares at the same time the coal mines in the United States are being destroyed because of the regulatory prohibitions on mining. Coal mines around the world, their stock was rising. And the friends of Obama bought coal mine stock here in the United States because it was destroyed, but also bought coal mine stock in other countries because shutting down coal mines in the United States raises the value of coal mines in other countries. This is smash and grab. This is what they're doing. They're still doing it. Well, let's talk about the climate lie. We have the climate czar, John Kerry. President Biden's recently appointed climate czar, John Kerry, took a private jet to Iceland in 2019 to receive the Arctic Circle Award for Climate Leadership. Okay.
He just started. How could he?
He took a private jet to Iceland to get an award for climate leadership. Right? Kerry defended his high pollution ride at the time, calling it the only choice for somebody like me who is traveling the world to win this battle. The incident has not been previously reported in the American press. But don't you understand this, folks? This is succinct and to the point. Kerry defended his high pollution ride by saying it's the only choice for somebody like me. What do you mean, somebody like you? Who are you? Who are you that are better than us? You're not. You just happen to have more money. You married into the Heinz 57 variety food chain. Icelandic reporter Johan something confronted Kerry at the event over his choice of transportation, asking, I understand that you came here with a private jet. Is that an environmental way to travel? And Kerry responded by claiming it was the only way. If you offset your carbon, it's the only choice for somebody like me who is traveling the world to win the battle. What they mean if they're offsetting their carbon. Al Gore, he offsets his carbon. You know how he offsets his carbon? Because he has the most unenergy efficient home in the country, and they all fly around on private jets and in limousines and air condition and heat these huge homes all over the place, and they buy carbon credits. They buy mine. I have solar panels, which reduces my electric bill. I sell my credits to a company in Washington, D.C. They bundle them into bigger credits and sell them to people like Al Gore, who buys carbon credits to offset his wasteful climate living.
So you're helping Al Gore?
It's a sham. It's a scam.
Okay.
It's a scam. I have solar panels, which reduces my electric bill because I produce electricity for my own use. And they've developed this scam to get people to implement the solar panels or windmills. Well, I put solar panels up there for two reasons. One, it would reduce my electric bill. If I had it all to do over again, I would have doubled the amount of panels, which would have taken me off of the grid completely, except I don't have any batteries. So when the sun goes down, the lights go out. You have to have electricity coming to your house from a provider, or you have to have a garage full of batteries, which puts it completely out of sight financially for you to have.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if I had double the amount of solar panels, I wouldn't get any electric bill, and I would be able to sell my credits. The amount of electricity I make, I can sell them to this company that bundles them, because I don't have it. They're not big enough. People wouldn't buy them from me because my solar credits aren't big enough. They bundle them and they sell them to people like John Kerry and Al Gore, who then claim they are living an environmentally friendly life because they're offsetting their wasteful living with buying my solar credits. Now, folks, the word for that, even though this is a religious-based show, is crap. That's crap. Simple as that. I wanted to put in a windmill. Here's another thing about windmills. Windmills, I live on a road that you should call it Windy Ridge. The wind is always blowing. Some of my trees grow on a 45-degree angle. I was going to put in a windmill, thinking that with the wind blowing like this all the time, sometimes hurricane-force winds blowing past my house. On occasion, it has lifted tiles off my roof, and I have trees growing on a 45-degree angle. Man, think of the electricity that I could produce, right, with this windmill spinning. Wrong. There's a break in there. If the wind is too strong and the windmill is spinning too fast, the clutch disengages and you stop making electricity.
Oh, wow.
And it freewheels. The reason it does is to prevent the entire unit from overheating and burning up. So there are limitations. I have solar panels. What's the limitation? When it snows, I got no electricity. When the sun goes down, the lights go out. You have to get electricity off the grid. If I put up a windmill, it could be making electricity great. Hurricane comes along, no electricity. It's all crap. There are restrictions to all of it. And the more of these Green New Deal things, these people are investing in those companies because they're getting the federal government to give them subsidies, and they're making money from the subsidies. And then they get the money, and if the company goes bankrupt, too bad. Right? They are destroying the economy. They are destroying the economy, and it's a lie. It is a lie. They show pictures of polar bears laying on ice floes, claiming that the poles are melting. Polar bears lay on ice floes because that's the way they hunt for seals. They have been laying on ice floes for generations and will continue to do that. It's not because the poles are melting away. Greenland, at one point, was a warm country. The Earth rotates in a couple of different ways, and they never talk about it. But when I was in school, my science teacher talked about it. The Earth rotates on its axis, doesn't it? And that's for your 24-hour day? And the Earth travels around the sun, doesn't it? For your 365-day year. And the moon travels around the Earth. And that gives you a 28-day cycle of full moon, waning moon, darker than moon, etc. There is another way that the Earth rotates that will cause an ice age or a hothouse effect. The Earth wobbles on its axis. It always has, and it always will. Just like that thing when you were a kid, you'd spin it. Even when it was spinning as fast, you took the rubber, the thing, you held it, shoom, and you got it spinning on the table, and it whistled.
Yeah, and it still wobbled.
Yeah, it still wobbled. If the Earth is wobbling on its axis and just wobbles a couple of degrees, that will cause us to have an ice age. And if it wobbles back the other way, that will cause us the climate to change completely. The fact that we are using fossil fuels and coal has relatively no effect on the climate. And ladies and gentlemen, with that, I'd like to say This is WHRFM.com, Point Counterpoint with Charlie and Pastor Gary. You have a great day. Give us a call, 484-480-6371. Donate to Dare to Be Different Food Pantry. This is WHRFM.com, your World Hype radio, television, computer show. Gary, keep your back to the wall and your paddle dry. And you too, folks. Have a great day.